Well, good afternoon, everybody, and hello, Georgina. How are you going today?
Well, thank you.
That's good. When I look at the countdown on the clock, I almost feel like I should be going up in space, but there you go. And if you're in Sydney, we've got some lovely rain here today, which is fantastic because we need it for the garden. So welcome, everybody, to our LinkedIn Live. And we're going to be chatting today about, how to survive and grow your business in tough times. And it's, I think, a really positive conversation to have because, in tough times, there's always things that we can do, and having the right mental attitude and approach when you're running a small business is so important. And often if you're a solopreneur and you're working on your own, it's often hard to have those conversations with yourself. And so Georgina and I hooked up through LinkedIn, and given her background, I thought it would be great to get some of her input. So for everybody here, Georgina is a business strategist and management consultant for small businesses. She helps them run their businesses more easily and effectively with systems and processes. And we were chatting yesterday, and Georgina said, you know what, all the boring stuff. And, us entrepreneurs and go-getters, we like all the creative stuff and getting out there. And often, we don't deal with the boring but really important stuff. So, and I've learnt that over the years that, in fact, the boring stuff is super, super important. And often if you can get that stuff right, you can really help you in your business. So, Georgina, thank you for making the time to be with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me along, Jackie. I really appreciate coming along and meeting you face-to-face online.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Now, Georgina, how long have you been working with small businesses? And I guess given today's topic, what are the main challenges that you end up helping small businesses resolve?
It's probably more around the admin stuff. I mean, they're the creative technician, and sometimes I guess I have a bit of what they call it's a Myers-Briggs sort of personality, ENTP, where I'm kind of come up with ideas and things like once I hear what's going on in their particular business, I can give them ideas and things like that. But I think my real strength is I've learned a lot about structures, and I worked in tax for quite a long time with a really good tax lawyer, and we used to put structures in place, and then from then on, I'm a bit like the normal person. I like variety. So sitting in a back office really didn't appeal to me. So I went into systems after that, so I could actually interact with users and the programmers as well, because I kind of understand programming and computers a lot. I guess I've been working in that probably since I started work. I had a bit of a break when I had kids, but then I went on and took a couple of sporting organisations and made them bigger and better, and a bigger membership and better teams. And it's all about facilitating, really. As the business owner, you're the facilitator to make things happen, and it's kind of what opportunities can we take abreast of. I think probably the top big things are getting your information out there. That would be a challenge. The marketing. How do I market? What is my although my background's not really in marketing, I just see that as an issue. I see probably a lack of planning. Probably that's one of the other things, and reviewing. How do I review? Because the information that we get out of the systems that we own are only as good as what we put in. So if you're not putting the information into the right spaces, you are not going to get the information out that you need in order to run your business, for example.
Yeah, and you make a great point there, because and in a weird way, perhaps a big assumption, I think that when I first started in my first business, I wasn't even sure what information I should capture. And
Yeah.
so I kind of didn't really capture much. I kind of thought, I've got a good idea. I'll go out there and try and market it, and I'll see what happens. And I've got some clients. And so, it took me a little while to actually realize that I needed to get some really clear information rather than going on gut feel and just, my energy really. And that worked for a while, and then it worked until it didn't work.
Yeah. Well, I think what I tend to see too is when I have a review of someone's books, and I can see straight away, and I've had a couple of clients where they might have had a bookkeeper tell them what to do, and the bookkeepers aren't qualified really to tell someone how to do their books. They can code things and they might know from other businesses, but what happens in other business is not necessarily going to happen in your business. And you fair off, you can get a bookkeeper and you can get an accounting system, but if the quality of what they're doing with that system, it means that if it's not there, you're not going to get the information, and you're going to be very confused about what it is. And there's different parameters within those systems that you can use to say, well, you could put marketing information in that system that can help you know where your spend is going. What am I spending it on? Is it being effective? And so when you do an analysis, although there's other systems too that link in with a lot, like for example, I use Xero, and then I can link HubSpot into it, and then having a look at both of the data on both of those. And HubSpot's similar to a lot of other CRMs. A lot of them are similar. They just have different pricing points. Some people get frustrated with HubSpot.
I didn't even know you could connect it up with Xero. So there you go. I've learned something.
There you go. There's you connect it up. It uses a product called Zapier. Yep. I'm all over computer stuff generally. It doesn't take me very long to learn it, So I remember just being one step ahead of someone else and saying, okay, we can do this. Let's set this up and give you these parameters because what's important to you,
So I think that's, sort of kind of focusing in on our topic today, when things are tough, and, they might be tougher or less tough for some people who are listening in here today. Typically it gets tough around cash flow, forward orders, and the uncertainty around those. And I call it the key in the money door. How much does it cost you to turn up to work every day, no matter where you are? So what would be the 3 top things in kind of like today's environment? If someone rang you up and said, hey, Georgina, I need your help, what would be the 3 things or 4 things that you would want to have a chat with them about first, or ask them to provide you?
I would want to see their numbers, and then I would probably have a big review of their numbers to see if what's sitting in the right place.
So what numbers are you looking for?
I'm probably looking for profit, but in that I'm having to look at, how much have they paid themselves? What are they spending most on? Is that normal? How are they, where are they advertising, and where's that money coming back? Is there any way of tracking that advertising spend compared to what's coming in and the numbers? I think, you talk about cash flow, it's really important. So one of the things when you first start in business, and I know probably there's a lot of people that are already in business been going, and now, times are getting tough, but really it's the detail in the plan, and reviewing that. And so, you talked about, well, how much do I need in order to live? If I'm going to not go out and work, this is my job. So if you think about, if you thought about, if you were in a job today, you would probably need 75 to 80,000 to service your mortgage, to live and pay some bills. So you're going to need that sort of profit level in order to make this a viable business. So you need to sort of start, and then you've got to work backwards. So one of the things is kind of like, well, there's got to be revenue coming in to feed that.
Yeah.
So that's a basic. So then you're almost sort of working backwards to say,
do you find most small business people don't do that tracking and they just focus on the revenue rather than the profitability? Or yeah. Certainly I did when I was first started. I was all about the revenue rather than understanding what my cost of sale was and the actual profitability. And that can potentially lead in challenging times to cash flow issues. And then you find you're using cash flow in ways that perhaps are not optimal.
Because you don't want to keep digging into your capital resources.
Yeah.
There as like a thing. So what you also need to do is like, you got to say, well, where, at what point do I get out? What point do I say this is not working and I go off and I've got to tweak? Because if you keep doing the same thing month in, month out, expecting the same result and the result isn't happening for you, you really need to pare back.
And so I guess that then goes back to your thing, you would go and look at the numbers, and I'm saying what numbers. So you need to know your numbers. And if and a lot of small business people, we go into business because we're passionate about what we do, but we're not necessarily trained in how to run a business. So having a cash flow and a P&L and tracking and knowing what tools to use. And I love what you've said. And Gunnar has also said this. He liked the way that your KPI tracking approach, you can have numbers, but understanding how effective they are your efforts actually paying off? And if you don't know that, you kind of are doing a lot of stuff not knowing if you're getting the right return or any return.
That's right. And you don't have to use just an accounting system. You can use your CRM as well, because your CRM provides information. So I know some people just use a CRM and some people will use them separately, like the accounting system. And so they might invoice through their CRM, but it doesn't link up to their accounting system. But it's best to have the two talking to one another, because then those two things together can show you some information. So if you have, but it's also in the CRM setting up the right parameters for, and you put this in your business plan, for example, of, I want to go out and I would like to work with women. So what is the percentage of women that, percentage of the population that are coming in buying our services? If it's men, then I'm marketing to the wrong people.
Yeah. And it sounds really obvious, but I've been doing some work around that in my own business. Am I getting the kind of clients that I wanted to get? And I've got plenty of them, and I'm very grateful for that. But it was like I've recently had the opportunity just to stand back and have a bit of a think about, well, I'm where I am. Is that where I wanted to be? And if I'm and if I'm not, what do I need to do, and how do I do that? And I've got somebody to help me do that because I'm too busy doing it. But I know I need someone to help me get the numbers and understand the efficacy of what we're doing.
Yes, and it's tracking also. One thing about them, the thing that I learned in marketing was that, you might be sending out messages. What percentages are coming back? Are you sending out the right message?
Yeah.
Are you speaking in the right way? Are you attracting the customer that you want to attract? Yeah. And so it's kind of, some people just you don't understand that, because there is certain percentages that are like a given in sales and marketing. But if you don't like selling, that might be something a skill that you have to learn. So there's different elements to business, because you've got to be the seller, you're the CEO, so you're doing all the tracking. If you're the solopreneur doing it all and you really can't afford to outsource it just yet, or you might want to put a little bit of capital aside to get a sales coach, or go and learn coaching, or go and do a sales job for a while and just understand the sales element, because that's a mindset to get your head around as well.
Yeah. And I think that's a great kind of segue, I guess, in terms of, you said you want to look at someone's numbers. And it reminds me that, when I went through the GFC with my business, it was really, really tough.
Yes.
And I just thought at the time, when I was in the GFC, it kind of like, no one was really quite sure how bad or good it was. But I took this view that if I just worked harder, I'd be able to get through it. And I got to a point where I just couldn't work harder, and the numbers weren't changing. And I think I mentioned to you yesterday that I kind of realized that hope was not an action plan, and that I needed to ask for help. And I found that really difficult. So what, again, kind of focusing on where people might be today, if people are having a struggle or not sure what they should do, what would you be chatting to them about in relation to that?
I think there's a certain mindset as well. There's quite a lot in that. So it's, or are you talking about asking for help or maybe planning? Is that?
I guess a bit of both, really, because when you're in the thick of it, you're planning. You tend not to plan because you're just dealing with what's in front of you, and even if you have a plan, it often just goes out the door, and then it then becomes part of your mindset. So I don't know. I think that maybe they're connected. You might have a different view.
Yes, overwhelm, I think, would kick in. Overwhelm would kick in because what are you doing is working and you're really not sure where to go. There's a bit of pride that you kind of go, well, I'm failing and I don't want to fail. I don't want to be seen to be failing because I want to be seen as successful, because who's going to come and work with a fail? You've got that thing going on. Who's going to come and work with a fail? If I, be vulnerable and say things aren't working out, but, sometimes that's probably the best step forward, because then people see that you're real, and we're all real. We all make mistakes, and mistakes are part of our growth, and mistakes are learnings that because when part of my NLP master practitioner training was, one of the premises is that you don't make mistakes. They're just learnings. And when you know better, you can do better. We're all doing the best we can with what we have. And then there's another one is when we know better, we can do better. And so part of it's a journey. Being in business is, especially small business, and I think, running a big business would be the same, is that when we're in business, it is a journey. It's a journey of kind of like, well, will this work? And even big business do it. They say, well, I want to try this particular product on the market. Is it going to work, or do we need to tweak it, or do we need to scrap it completely? I mean, some other business went down the track might pick that up and it works for them, because they might market it differently. But if it's not working, it doesn't mean that it's failing. It just means that you might have to tweak and move on, or it might have to deal with one of the things that I had to get help on was sales. I had to get help on seeing myself on camera. I'm very comfortable with it now, but 6 years ago, it's like, oh my gosh, what do you mean I've got to talk on the camera? I don't even like the sound of my own voice. So there's a lot of
yeah, and interestingly, again, Gunner's just made a bit of a comment here, and I think this is right into your wheelhouse, Georgina, is that having tools that automate a lot of information for you, so you're not, this information is flowing through. So talk about, maybe share some of the things that, as I said, I didn't even know HubSpot could talk to Xero. So what are some of the kind of cool or good automations that you use for your own business and help other people with, in terms of numbers and figures and information?
Yeah, you can set up a whole lot of rules. So the information feeds into certain, because it's all about data, really. It's about data, it's threading it in. And so you can thread it to go different ways. You can set up a whole lot of rules that make things easy. For example, I know in all of the accounting packages, you could set up rules so that when you do because in all of the systems, if you're working for yourself, you're going to have to do the reconciliation yourself, is that there's a there's rules that you can set up. So, for example, if Xero sends you an invoice, that you've already done a rule that says it goes to Xero, and then it's part of like subscriptions, or you might want to put it to its own subscription depending on how many subscriptions you've got, so you can actually see what you're spending. I know businesses do that; they'll have subscriptions and then Xero after it, or if you've got a sale for a particular customer and it's women, then how does that information HubSpot into Xero, or how is HubSpot capturing it? So when you say you've got a form, for example, and you've put a form out. Say, for example, when you were advertising this, you might have had a landing page so that people could put their details in, or their email and their name. Well, it might be able to assume that it's a woman, but it might say, you might actually add into the form, are you female or male? You might have, a lot of surveys at the moment have, are you, 0 to 18, 18 to 30, what sort of demographic are you? Do you live in New South Wales or Queensland or something like that? So that you can see where you're picking up most of it. Are you getting people from a capital city, for example, or are you getting them from the country? Are they from overseas? Are they international, or are they Australian? So is it local, or
do people like filling out forms like that? I mean,
probably not.
I mean, I
do surveys and things like that, I guess. So I really want to kind of get some feedback, because it helps me service you better. So you can send out a form that says, I'm just doing a survey of information of existing, my valued customers. I want to be able to help you more. And so then you can send that information out and gather that information. It's just another way of doing it.
So you said you'd look at someone's numbers and see what that's telling them. Again, going back to the theme of the discussion today, if things are a bit tight, or they're not sure, if someone doesn't know how to ask for help, or how do they, what would you suggest? I mean, I've been in that situation, and quite apart from, as you mentioned, the fear of failure aspect, I just didn't even know how to ask for help. And I had a whole bunch of people who in the end, I actually had to ask for help from. But boy, it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Now I'm really good at it, but I was really bad at it then.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things you can do. I was thinking about this last night after a conversation yesterday, and one of the things is just get a mentor. It's someone that's more experienced than you, not necessarily in the same industry, but just experienced in running a business, maybe in a retail business. The other thing is that I was in, was it Casula, or it was down below under the bridge. I'm on the north side, and my daughter lives down near Padstow. And so I was down that way, and I had to go through Casula or one of the other ones. I just noticed how, compared to some businesses, or some areas of business on the North Shore, that this area was so busy. There was a lot of foot traffic. And I just thought, would it be valuable to go around and talk to businesses about how they're doing and how they do well in business, and what are the trends that they see, and how do they attract their business? And, just say you're not from that area, go to an area that you're not part of, or even go into your local area and join a chamber of business. I think that's another one that's really, there's one in the centre of Sydney that's very good. I found a lot of help in that over the last year. There are lots of marketing coaches and stuff outside. I wouldn't say they've had probably a lot of experience running a business long term. A lot of them do this thing called 10x your numbers and things like that. I'm a bit tired of that approach. I don't think that kind of works. And a lot of, solopreneurs, maybe coaches, get attracted to that because they think they're doing well. But really, the best thing is to go and see what's happening face to face. And just, I know this, if you want to be in the online space, you actually have to get online. You actually have to be it's a bit like the squeaky wheel in a way.
Yeah.
Because if you're in front of people's face, do you remember the old Dick Smith? And he'd be on the radio with Harvey Norman. Was it Harvey Norman? What's his name? Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry Harvey. Yeah.
Jerry Harvey was always there. You know, I remember a friend of mine used to be on the Dell insert that used to go in the papers. It was always in the paper. So it's in front of mind. And so a lot of people are buying Dell. So you've got to be people in front of people's faces. So it's doing reels on Instagram, and passing that through to Facebook, perhaps doing just people get
and you raise a really, really valid point. And it's about visibility. And visibility these days is quite different from even 10, 15 years ago, because there are more options. And I know that when I'm chatting with people about their books, you know, I say basically we've got to be in the visibility game. There's no point having a book that there's the world's best kept secret. And so that then leads you around to that thing, well, who's the audience and where are they? Because you've got lots and lots of options. So you have to really work out what's the maximum, you know, where can you have the maximum impact? Because just pushing out content and being visible without any strategy or really understanding where your audience is kind of a waste of time and money. So I think, again, in challenging times like this, it may be hard to feel like that you want to get out there and be visible, but in fact, it's the very time that you really need to be on top of where's your audience, what are their challenges, how can you help them? And you need to let them know that you can help them and that you're there.
You need to speak their language.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, like, for example, I was in the accounting industry a long time ago, and I can speak accounting speak. I remember I was in this coaching program, and the lead invited an accountant to come and talk to us. But it was like she was talking to an accountant. No one understood her. I was like, and I knew what she was saying because that was, you know, a lot of my training. But the people around us sort of went, whoosh, you could just see them going, I got no idea what she's saying. So you've got to be able to talk how people talk. So, for example, women have got, for example, a lot of women in business might also have a family, and so they're having to juggle the family needs, whatever's going on with their child or their teenager, the childhood sickness, teenagers mucking up, or, you know, and then they've got to be at the school to pick, you know, they're picking up kids from school and dropping them off, or they've got to find a nanny or you know, some other care, or grandparents, or, you know, it's trying to you're organizing your whole life. So, you know, it's part of just knowing what to talk about. And I
think you also raise another really good point there, is about knowing the time, when to talk, because, you know, we're doing this at lunchtime for a reason, you know, because mostly people stop for lunch and they can do it, and hopefully this is, you know, they're done and dusted. But if you're trying to attract an audience of, you know, working mums or people who are in corporates, you know, this is perhaps not going to suit them. And certainly the witching hour between 5 and 6 o'clock is not going to work. So again, it's about stepping back and really looking at who your customers are, or who you want them to be, and then understanding where they're at and what their challenges are and the time pressures that they have.
It's a bit like when you open your store. It's like when's the most traffic going to come out? You know, Woolies on a Saturday morning is going to be thriving because it's, you know, everyone's off work and they've gone shopping because the weekend, or, you know, the bars are open. The bars are open in the evening for a reason, or at lunchtime, is because that's when the most traffic is coming past. So where is your traffic, and what time are they out?
And I guess that then goes back to, you know, your very early point about plannings and systems and processes, because you, as an individual, you just cannot do that on your own. You've either got to get people to help you, you know, and only focus on those things that only you can do, and and get other people to help you with other things. And I'm not great at systems and processes, so I have people who help me in that, so that I can do the stuff that only I can do.
Yeah, you can automate most of that part so that it kind of happens, but there's an element that you do have to. And you as the business, I know a lot of business owners that say, oh, I let my accountant do that.
Right.
You can't let your accountant do that. I'll give you an example. One of my things in my book that I've written a book, and it's more of it's kind of like telling you some issues that can go wrong. And, there's different parts of it, but one of the parts is outsourcing.
Yeah.
And really, when you outsource, you can't outsource everything. There are things that you need to be on top of, and numbers is one of them. You need to know them, because you can get ripped off so easily. This particular, it was a friend of the family from my parents, and he didn't want to deal with the numbers. He just wanted to look after the wine. So he outsourced all the numbers to his partner. Well, his partner walked away with his inheritance and his wife's inheritance. So, and that was a lot of money. Had to sell her house.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time. And even if just letting your accountant do it, and it's access.
And it's interesting you say that, because I have a very good accountant, financial advisor who I've had for many years, but I kind of liken them to a lawyer in a way, because if you have to have the need for a lawyer, they'll give you the advice, but they won't tell you what to do. You have to make that decision,
right?
Right. And in a way that's kind of good, but it does mean that you actually do need to understand your numbers, because it's your money and your client's money. The accountant, you need to be able to actually express to them what you want to do with those numbers.
And it does cost money to do that. And accountants, probably a lead accountant might charge, say, $400 or $500 to look at your books.
Yep.
If they have someone underneath it, it probably won't cost that much. So it might average out, but it's best to get a quote on, tell them what you want, but then get a quote on what that might cost, because that is part of your planning as well. Yep. Although it might be best, one of the things that they probably, unless you ask, help you structure what you're doing. So structures, because what do you want it to be? You want it to be tax effective as well.
Of course.
So I had one of my clients, or actually a couple of my clients, they outsourced everything to a bookkeeper, thinking that they knew what was doing and coding and all that sort of stuff. And one of them got told to pay herself a wage, and then had to pay everything out as a wage. But then she had a credit card in there as well, and she ended up paying herself. She was in a loss situation of quite a lot of, in double digits, and it was all to do with the salary that she was paying herself. But she was paying a hell of a lot of money to the tax office as well because of this salary thing. And luckily, I've gotten a fantastic, because I've been through a lot of it. I'm having an accountant. I'm a perfectionist in terms of numbers. I really know my numbers well. I've been always good with numbers. So I know when my accountant's working or not. And so now I have one of the best accountants in Sydney. She's fantastic. And I can trust that I don't have to go backtrack through things and just check it. I know that she gets it right. So I've referred a couple of people to her now. But, it's just knowing that, just having that, I think that background information is just to know that your numbers are well, and that
and I guess that also then kind of goes back again on the theming of today, is that often when you're under pressure, as you say, like you get overwhelmed, and part of you might not actually want to know the numbers, but in fact, that's at the very point that actually deeply knowing your numbers is critically important. It gives you, you've got to face up to the fact that hope's not an action plan.
That's right. And the tax office can be in Australia, the tax office for the first year of your business, they can be
Yep.
pretty lenient.
Yep.
And so they allow mistakes because they realise that you're,
Yep.
small business owner, you haven't done this before. But beyond that, they're not so forgiving. So it's really important. It's a really important element of business, knowing what the numbers are.
So we've been chatting for half an hour. We can, when I was saying yesterday, we could chat all day. If anybody's online and listening, and if they have any specific questions, by all means, fire away and type them in, and Georgina can answer them. In terms of one of the things that I think I learned mostly, also when I was kind of under a bit of pressure a while back, was that I couldn't do everything, and that I needed to actually invest in other people to take the load off, because I needed to find more time to give me the mental ability to really focus on the things that I needed to. And it was a false economy to cut things out and try and do it all myself. What's your kind of view on that?
I think a VA can really help, especially if you're online and you're not making a lot of money, because I know wages here in Australia are expensive. Because your minimum wage here is a lot to do, but you can get a VA. I had one from the Philippines for a while, and that was really helpful because they sort of were helping me with tracking and maybe starting off a conversation within some of my systems, sort of doing some of the admin job. You can actually outsource, your bookkeeping a little bit, but you first want to know that person knows what they're doing. And I suppose that's getting an experienced person in that area to then advise.
And interestingly, you say that. I've got a virtual team. I set up the Book Advisor as a virtual business 10 years ago, way before COVID. And again, my business mentor really encouraged me to do that. And so I have a VA in the Philippines, and I also have an admin person in Donna, who's worked with me, for years, and in many roles. And I've got, graphic design. I've got a team around the world. And if you'd asked me 10 years ago whether A, I would have done that, number one, or B, whether I could do it, I would have said, oh no, I would want an office and people in the office. And this again was way before COVID. And now I wouldn't start a business any other way. But it does take a bit of organizing, and you do need seriously good systems and processes and ways to connect up with people, because whilst they might be virtual, they're just remote. They're not virtual, they're real people. So you need to create the ways to have, strong interpersonal relationships with people you don't actually meet.
You're the leader of your team, so you need to lead them in the way they do, because language can be, especially different cultures and different countries, different languages, anything can be misinterpreted. So you have to be very clear. And if you're dealing with, I worked for Oracle a long time ago, and if I asked a question that could be answered with a yes, I got a yes, which didn't mean that it was a yes. It meant yes meant I have heard you. So you have to be really clear and in writing what you need. And at the end of the day, there almost needs to be a checklist. What have I accomplished those things that I've been asked to do today? That's what I found when I was employing, especially when you might have a couple of different people, is just knowing that they're on track and having some team meetings. I think, you're the leader. So if you can make their life an enjoyable place to work, they're going to want to do the best for you. But if you're one of those, I've had bosses that aren't particularly nice over the years, and it's kind of like, well, you either don't want to be there, or you clock out, or you just don't give as much.
And I think that's kind of a great segue. We're getting kind of close to our wrap up time, and that, in all times, but particularly in challenging times, having a clear, systems and processes and good planning and a flow of information, it gives you more power than you can possibly know. And if you are drowning a bit, put up your hand and ask for help. And one of the reasons I was running this today is because some people have reached out to me over the last 3 or 4 months, and because they know I've been through ups and downs, and I belong to a business women's group called Women Chiefs of Enterprises International, and I've been part of that group for 30 years, and that network of business women has been really important for me throughout my life, and I think having the courage to ask for help if you need it is super important, and to say, look, I don't know, I am stuck, and not be embarrassed or fearful about the fact that you might not have set things up properly to start with, because tomorrow's a new day, and you can get through it.
That's right. But also you're talking about planning. It's like you can get an interactive system, or you can even create it on Excel. One of my things in Oracle was used to create these interactive spreadsheets. And so if you put different parameters in or different prices in, it shows you what the result can be.
Yeah.
So, starting up and just putting, I have a pricing thing that's really basic. It's kind of like, well, what do I want to achieve in the next 12 months? What's my plan going forward? If I had this many customers at this price, I would get this information, and try it over your products and see what comes up. And it's quite because at first when you look at that, you think, this is so hard.
Yeah.
I can't do it because it looks too hard. But you only need just to reach out to someone, or someone like me that has analysis experience, or something to do with the mindset, or there's something that's too hard, and just go, this is too hard, can you help me, or give me an idea of where I can go? And and just by investing in a little bit of growth work for yourself, and it's an investment, because it's kind of it's like this to build the structure. It's not just the structure around your accounting system, or your desk, or the four walls that are around you. Your structure is also the mentorship and the experts that you have around you that are going to give you the good foundation. I think one of the things in training, like when you go off and do a university degree, it's a foundation that you have forever. And you think, well, that beautiful foundation, and if you work in the right place after you come out of that and you build upon that experience, there's that foundation that doesn't go away, because you have that beautiful knowledge. And if you're in business, you can apply it straight away. And so you're learning, and the learning just goes step by step, because you keep learning.
You know what? It's two kind of observations. I mean, I used to hate Excel, and now everyone kind of who works with me knows I've got a standard. I haven't met an Excel spreadsheet I don't love, and I didn't start off that way. I love a good Excel spreadsheet. I'm sure I could learn much more about it. And I guess the other one that comes to top of mind before we wrap up is also, apart from the planning and the systems and the processes, is that you and I mentioned early on that doing these sort of, being public, being visible, learning to be comfortable in front of a camera, or putting yourself out there. A lot of people are terribly fearful of that. And I, with some of my book clients, I have to get them into LinkedIn because they're terrified of even doing a post. So for a lot of things, for a lot of small business people and consultants, we've all got areas that we're not great at, and that we need to learn, and that we need to seek help for. And I've certainly learnt that, and continued to learn things. So I think that being that mindset thing of being open to really understanding what you're not great at and what you feel that you need to get more capability in, I think would be the biggest message I would get out of today's conversation, because none of us are great at everything.
It can't be. Okay, we're not. We can only take in 7 plus minus 2 things at a time. And if you've got a whole lot of stuff that's already gone on before you even started your day, then it only leaves a small amount of things that you can do for the rest of the day. And that includes learning. So getting help, and just not having to go out and start from scratch and learn something. Go and get someone's advice. I know when we're young, we kind of want to do it ourselves. We want to learn it, and we don't want mum and dad's advice. But when you're in small business, there's a lot more at stake than your ego. There's a lot of money, and your suppliers and your customers are all counting on you. And there's, so if you go broke, what happens? What happens to the service, the continuity of service? What happens to your suppliers and them getting paid? And you really got to care about your business community.
I think that's such a powerful comment, Georgina. And also about your own health and your own family. Because it's when it's all going not so well, it can be overwhelming. Georgina, look, thank you so much for your time today. For those of you who are interested, Georgina's actually written and published a book, and it's actually not, I didn't kind of find Georgina through her book, but it's called Make the Shift: From Business Operator to CEO of Your Own Business. And I just love that concept, because, and I'm a bit guilty of it myself, I'm so involved in the business and I love it, but I don't spend enough time working on the business. And I think in challenging times, the need to step back and actually reassess and understand what's working and what's not is so critical. Donna's going to put a slide up on here, and if you're interested in that book, or if you're interested in contacting Georgina at any point, and also you can reach out to me. I'm not a business coach or an accountant, but I've been through a few of my own ups and downs over the years. So Georgina, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
What's the message that you would like to leave everybody with before we sign off?
Oh, it's a bit like my motto: you design your business, you design your life. But it's like a circle going around. It's life doesn't happen without business or work, and business doesn't happen without life. There's all, it's a flow. And so if everything's flowing, everything will work well, but there's always something that's going to come into the side, or, if we can deal with it in a sort of flowy way, then it will, we can function a lot better. So it's just dealing with things with a bit more aplomb.
Yeah. And too right. Cause it's our businesses often are sustaining our lives and our families. And if we're not looking after our own selves in the process, it can be quite debilitating. And I guess my kind of leave line is, hope is not an action plan. I've tried that, and I can tell you it doesn't work. But there are people out there who are happy and willing to help and be supportive, and there are networks out there, and I know quite a few of them, and you probably do too. So don't feel like you've let yourself down or anyone else down by asking for help. So thank you, everybody, for taking some time out of your day. I hope some of these conversations have been useful for you. Have a great rest of the week, and go the Swans in the weekend's grand final. I'm not really an AFL supporter, but I think I'm going to be, obviously barracking for them this weekend. So again, thank you very much for your time. Please PM either Georgina or myself through LinkedIn, or get a hold of us via our websites. And we're happy to be part of your community and do our bit to make people happier and healthier in all parts of their lives. So thanks very much for coming along today.
Thank you so much.